Hello, everybody. This is Jackie Dillon. I'll be your moderator today. Welcome and thank you for attending the Open for Business Response to COVID-19 in Charlotte session. This is a joint presentation with Bill Medjasek, Glenn Burton, both from the City of Charlotte, and J.E. Fowler from ESRI. Just have a few things. I just want to make sure that you check out your Zoom login and make sure your name's on there so we know who to give the credits to. And then at the end of the session, we'll be open for some questions, but if you want to put them in chat, we can also look there to see. Enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming today. Welcome to the Open for Business Response to COVID-19 in Charlotte presentation. Today, the Center for Data Analytics team at the City of Charlotte is going to share with you some of the efforts that we did to help the city create programs for small businesses during the pandemic. The project team consisted of a bunch of folks here. We have Andrew Bowen, who is the Data Analytics Manager, Robert Serrato, our Data Program Manager, Glenn Burton and Jacob Todd are our GIS admins. This project, we pulled in some help from ESRI with Jay Fowler, listed here as our GIS resource extraordinaire from ESRI. And I'm Bill Medjasek, the business intelligence developer for the Center for Data and Analytics. A few of these folks can't be with us today. In fact, Glenn, who was supposed to join us with this presentation, got called away. So Andrew will be taking his spot. And Jacob was also supposed to participate early on, but got called away for some other things as well. So what you have is me, Andrew, and Jay, who are going to give you the rundown on what we did for this project. Let's see. Question is, what is the Open for Business program? Open for Business isn't just one program or project, but a series of projects that the city developed to help small businesses survive, recover, and thrive during the COVID-19 pandemic. The project that we're speaking of today, that focused on the GIS and technology steps taken in the beginning, make up the first part of really a multi-pronged approach to providing services to the Charlotte small business community during the pandemic. Those services include things like mentorships, training, access to capital, and of course, inclusion in this dashboard tool. We had some challenges. Our friends in economic development and in corporate communications and marketing asked for some help in creating an online registry of small businesses. We teamed up with them to create a solution. In addition to what we created, we also added some user accounts in our ESRI system and trained economic development staff on how to use those systems and update records that were coming in. Figured out a few ways that we were going to automate some processes of notifying the registrants and to share the data with the public. And along the way, we bought a little time for some of the other components of the bigger project to be put into place and helped build an audience for these programs. Of course, along the way, there were some challenges. Staff time, and staff and time really is one of them. Like many of you, we were kind of adapting to this new work environment, working from home. Whereas just a few weeks before, we were all crammed into 431, our office on the 4th floor, within arm's reach of each other. Easy to ask a question, get some help, stand at someone's desk, share screens, that sort of thing. This shared space gave us a lot of chemistry for problem solving that we were able to implement before. A little bit more challenging now, since I think that there are at least 3 counties involved with the number of people who worked on this project. And just as we were working on this project, we were also onboarding a new staff member who had been completely remote from the beginning. On top of that, we suffered from what you might say is too many options for tools. We were talking about building custom web applications and SurveyMonkeys, Google Forms, and all sorts of other options that are out there. And our enterprise applications team, who we might have relied on to help us get this stuff out, they were tied up with some other modifications that our 311 system needed, things that were getting added to the mobile application to also address COVID-19 needs. So we really didn't have time to design, build, test, deploy, secure, all the other things that you need to do to a brand new system from scratch. So after some tinkering with some options that we had available, we got an idea of how we could do it. But then the next problem was that none of us really had, from start to finish, worked with all these components that we landed on in order to deliver one single unified product. And finally, we were kind of making this project up as we went along. We had a loose set of requirements and a lot of freedom to explore a lot of options, but not all of the details were quite nailed down yet, which caused some worry about putting too much work into one aspect of the project only to have it need to be redone when the requirements got a little more refined. So we ended up settling on a workflow that we thought we could manage that would work with the pieces that we had decided. In the end, it was mostly an ESRI-based solution, and using ArcGIS Hub, Survey123, ArcGIS Online, some SQL Server SSIS packages, and our open data portal, and maybe a little more ArcGIS Online and some other things that are in the ESRI suite, we were able to put together a solution that authenticated the user and allowed that user to update their information. We trained our economic development colleagues on how to check the submissions and categorize them based on whether their businesses met the criteria for small businesses, as well as being compliant with the governor's executive orders. And finally, we created some ETL process to consume that data via the REST endpoints that were available and bring that into our SQL Server environment internally, parse it for additions, subtractions, and deletes or edits, updates, all the normal operations, and then to send messages out based on the status of those submissions. And finally, we were able to share that data through our open data portal and published web applications that are now embedded in the City of Charlotte's CLT Plus mobile application and in the Open for Business program's website. Thanks to the partnership that we had with ESRI, we were able to move on this project quickly without spinning up a lot of new services. And I'm going to hand things over to Jay Fowler, our GIS resource extraordinaire at ESRI, to talk about the hub and ESRI's contributions. Jay?
Thank you so much, Bill. So yeah, let's talk about Hub and some of the capabilities that Charlotte utilized. The first was community user types, which enabled small business owners to participate in this project and this initiative. The second was the actual content that was organized through ArcGIS Hub. In this case, it was surveys and apps like Web App Builder. And finally, Charlotte's Open for Business initiative utilized Hub's teams and sharing approach for engagement. So Hub creates groups which facilitated the sharing of content to business owners. And you can think of those groups essentially as teams. Next slide, please. So here's a high-level look at Hub Premium and its design. On the left, we have Charlotte's main ArcGIS Online organization. This is where the city's staff and employees log in to create data, apps, and contents. It's just like the ArcGIS Online org that you're probably accustomed to with your organization. Hub Premium provides a second ArcGIS Online organization that's connected to your main organization. That's the org that you are seeing on the right side here. It's paired with your main org to easily facilitate collaborating while keeping community users nice and kind of isolated from your production ArcGIS Online org. In this case, Charlotte's community org is housing business owners in the community. They're user types in ArcGIS Online, right? But the nice thing is that they're in this separate community org that's partnered with the main org, so it makes it really easy to share. For this initiative, Charlotte wanted to control access to the survey, for instance, where the business owners were registering their business. You had to be registered in the system, so you had to be a user in the system. This would allow you to come back and modify your survey as the situation on the ground changed, so things like business hours, special instructions, etc. But one really important part was you couldn't modify other businesses' surveys. You could only modify your own, and technically we have the capabilities to control that. This is all made possible by the yellow buttons, or the buttons you see circled in yellow on this page. A business owner registers on the web page. At that point, they're prompted to create an account using an email or social media. Premium creates 3 groups by default. The first is a content group, and that's effectively for generic content shared with this initiative. The second is the core team. This group is used for people who like its content. So this is a really powerful tool, really powerful group. It would allow you to share ownership of an initiative with, for instance, another department in your organization or another group, even trusted groups in the community. However, it's not going to be right for this purpose where business owners are coming in. We wouldn't want them to be able to edit the main Hub site. We just want them to be able to complete surveys securely. Finally, Hub Premium has a followers group. When a user follows, or in this case, registers, they create an account, as we just discussed. Next, that user is automatically added into this followers group. The survey and other content like the Web App Builder app has been shared with this group. So the business owner clicks to register and all of a sudden the survey pops up because they now have access to it. So it's a really neat way to handle that. They can fill out the survey as a business owner and can come back and modify that survey as things change, but they can't modify other people's surveys, which is really important because it's not a publicly shared survey. The response is actually tied to their community user, and you have editor tracking so you can see what user actually made those modifications. Next slide, please. All right, so what can community users do in Hub Premium? You can create and manage a user profile that we talked about. You use an email address or social media. You can join an initiative team. In this case, they hit register. It's just kind of a different way to say it. You can respond to surveys that are secured and tied to identity. And you can follow initiatives to receive updates. So when all these small businesses hit register, Charlotte now has a list of all the small businesses. And as things move into a different phase, for example, they could reach out with an email campaign to all their small business owners who have registered, which is really neat. These first 4 capabilities are just what Charlotte needed for this specific project. But the great news is that there are more capabilities included in Hub Premium, so there's some room for growth as this initiative continues to evolve. These community users, the small business owners, can contribute content. They can sign up to attend events. They can create their own web maps or their own story maps, for instance, using shared data. Maybe like if you have a restaurants week, you could create your own story maps for restaurants week or something like that. And finally, they can participate in public quick capture projects. So just another way to essentially crowdsource data from those small business owners. Next slide, please. So I'd like to say a really big thank you to Charlotte for including ESRI in this project. We love partnering with our users. It's great to see a really wonderful use case being successful. In this case, helping small business owners in the community during a very difficult time. Here's a quote from Warren Buffett. "Someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago." So ESRI gets a lot out of partnering with our users. Thanks to Charlotte and other governments in the US, ESRI developed a small business recovery solution that has many of the components being discussed in this talk today. We do this by identifying common workflows and looking for what people have built, gathering requirements, and getting feedback. And this is how our solutions are developed. So to wrap up my part, if you're out there in the audience and you have a project and you want to brainstorm or you want to partner, please reach out to ESRI, as we really love to partner with our users. And finally, if you're interested in a solution similar to what you're seeing in this presentation, scan this QR code, check out this URL. Please check out our small business recovery solution. It can be deployed in just a few clicks. And thanks again for Charlotte. This solution's a reality because of Charlotte and other groups out in the United States that we can take notes from what they've done. So thank you, and I'll pass it back over to Charlotte now.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. This is Andrew Bowen, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why we use Survey123 Connect. As everyone knows, there's Survey123, and then there's the different version Connect, which allows more lower level survey creation that allows to build in logic and a little bit more guidance to the user. So the logic was the real important part of this because we were trying to tackle 2 things. We were trying to get information from the community while actually at the same time getting information from our partners internally, what information they wanted from the community. So we knew we needed a survey, and we knew we needed a quick and easy way of updating it as we got more information on what it is that we actually needed to request. So for example, when we first drafted the survey, we had maybe 3 or 4 different industry types. And it seemed like every couple of days there was a, can you add this one? And can you add this one? So being able to use Survey123 Connect actually enabled us to, like I said, guide the users through, give them the appropriate and most up-to-date response options, particularly as we were learning more about what the criteria was going to be for being included in the Open for Business dashboard. At first, we were told small business, and as everyone who's worked with small business information before knows, that that can be described as many different ways as you ask people. So we also needed to make sure when we had the survey responses that, like Jay said, people couldn't update other people's surveys, but we did have various staff members throughout the organization, not just in the Center for Data and Analytics, who needed to have the ability to go in and update and approve entries. So with that, I think we can go to next slide. And we also, I touched on this a little bit already, we gave ArcGIS Online accounts to everyone who needed them in our economic development group, because we also know that if we have a survey out in the world that is publicly accessible, anybody who has some funny idea or some bad idea can actually go in and say, you know, here's my business name and something that might not exactly be appropriate. But because we were wanting to turn this information around as quickly as possible to publish to the dashboard so people could explore and find businesses that were open, we had to find a balance between taking survey responses immediately and placing them on the dashboard. And so we had to insert a step where our economic development friends actually went in and approved every single entry, whether it was approved outright, approved to be added to the dashboard after the stay-at-home order, or whether it was denied entirely. And we actually sent out emails every 10 minutes when this was first launched. And that was so that we could actually turn these items around quickly. And we have backed it off to once an hour now. So with that, I think heading to the next slide, Bill's going to talk a little bit about the SSIS package magic that he built to move all of this stuff around appropriately. So Bill.
Thank you, Andrew. I don't know quite why we haven't needed to do this before, but up until this point, we didn't pull information in from our portal environment. We feed data out all the time. We feed it out daily, we feed it out weekly. Millions of rows sometimes get published, but up until this project, we didn't ever pull anything back in. So we were trying to figure out how best to do that. And a lot of our GIS resources were working on the GIS side of things. Ironically, I'm here giving this presentation. I'm not a GIS person, except that I'm becoming one through osmosis. But our DBAs down the virtual hall, as it were, these days had created a different process to kind of harvest scooter data from JSON sources. And so I took a look at what they had done, and they'd set up an SSIS package and a lot of scripts to download the data. And, you know, fortunately, everyone should get themselves a rock star set of DBAs. Ours created this great little project that I was able to look at, understand, and then completely steal for our purposes. And created a new Visual Studio project, imported some of the previous used pieces from other projects in there. And then I smashed in the REST endpoint URL, sprinkled in a little token magic in there. And with a little bit more wrestling, we managed to have a functioning SSIS package that did some of the things that Andrew talked about, that viewed what the status was based on what our friends at Economic Development had labeled them as. And then depending upon what that status was, we sent out 3 different potential email messages. You know, one for yes, you're approved, one for you're approved, but won't be public until after the stay-at-home order is lifted, and then one for not being approved. And then after we sent out that email, we would then move that data into our open data portal, where some other applications were created that consume that data. Because once we'd moved the data into the open data portal, we were able to create the web apps that consume that data, that we tacked on a little definition query to make sure that only the approved businesses were showing up on the map. And there's a little bit of a delay, right? Because the first day we got a lot of registrations, but there were still just a sparse number of maps or of dots on the map. So we waited a day or two, but the first couple of days, entries were coming in like gangbusters, and it was great. Like Andrew
Bill,
said,
just want to give you a 10-minute mark, 10 more minutes.
thank you for that. I think we're dangerously close to the demo here. Let's see. All the decisions were made by economic development, though, because at that point we weren't the ones deciding who was and was not a business. But these once we got these maps in place, the other cool thing was that the apps team, the enterprise apps team, who didn't have time to kind of help us build stuff from scratch, was able to include references into the mobile application. So you'll see in the CLT Plus app, there are 2 tabs there: register your business, which takes you right to the form where you would use the hub login process that Jay described, and then search for open businesses, something that I've even used to go and look for some small business to support. And of course, we also published this data into a normal size map that got embedded into the Small Business Resources website. So at this point, I'm going to send things back, and we're going to transition control over to Andrew, who is going to show you what the forms and the online products look like. Andrew?
Yes. Thank you again, Bill. Just since I know we're running short of time and I want to leave enough so if there's any questions, we've already set this up in a way that I'm going to show you the survey, the approval process, and then the dashboard, essentially, of what it is. So the survey is actually pretty straightforward. We have logic built in, so if you say, no, this is not a Charlotte-owned business, we very clearly told people, sorry, you cannot be on this Charlotte dashboard. So if people go through here and answer all of the questions appropriately, oops, it's not more than 50 people, or it is more than 50 people, it does not, it's not approved. So we would guide people through the survey process and ask them specific questions with drop downs and things like that. Once they hit submit, it is not immediately put on the dashboard. It actually comes to a place where the economic development team is in charge of reviewing under the data for the feature. So you can see here right now we have 752 entries, and the one I actually made just now is Wild Bill's 24-hour IT services here, this top row. And what the economic development group did was go through here and review all of these responses, and they'd say, all right, you have a minimum charge of $500, for example. Awesome. Oh, you're offering discounts, and Wild Bill said yes, and then said get out of here, right? So at some point, someone's got to approve, and we just so happen to know that unfortunately Wild Bill's not approved. So with him not getting approved, he would not be on the dashboard, but all of these other wonderful small businesses across the city of Charlotte absolutely were, and now live on our Open for Business dashboard. Now, all of these locations are actually user generated, so they have the opportunity to put in their address or point on a map. So anybody who wants to look in their neighborhood, they can go through and say, you know what, I live right over here. I want to see what business this is, and Silver Monkey Images does marketing and advertising, and here's all of the different things they offer. And this, like Bill said, is accessible through the Charlotte Plus 311 app, through the website, and is part of the larger Open for Business Now initiative that our small business group offers. So Bill, I'll send the control back to you because I think we have an image of what the emails look like if you are approved or not approved. And then I think we're just about ready for questions once we pass that.
All right, is my screen showing again here?
It is.
All right. Yeah, we had 3 basic messages, but I'll show you 2. The approved one included an attachment. It was, I can't remember exactly what the economic development folks called it. It was kind of like a electronic bonus pack or something like that. It was some logos that you could print and use on your website or your social media presence to let the small business, or let the community know that your small business was open, and also kind of get the word out more about the program here. And all of this was sent using SSIS and our SQL server. We also had of course, the rejection. It was very nice, and just said thank you. It didn't include the bonus package of graphics and instructions and that sort of thing. And I think that there were a few people who may have appealed the process along the way and worked it out with economic development, that their status had changed. Maybe they just didn't provide the right information. But this tool helped facilitate that process as well. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you for taking the time to attend this presentation. Hope you found something helpful here, and any questions that you have, we're happy to take a shot at it.
Thank you, guys. If anybody has any questions, if they'd like to type them in the chat, I saw a few, but looks like Jay already responded to them. Otherwise, if you want to just ask, that's fine too.
Thanks everybody for letting us present. This was an enormous undertaking, and the group of 6 or so people you saw on the first page absolutely only scratched the surface with the amount of coordination and input and effort that it took to lift this thing up. So I'd be remiss if I didn't thank all of my colleagues at the City of Charlotte, and everybody else who was part of it, especially ESRI, and some late nights and weekends, keeping people in business. So fantastic.
Awesome. You guys got a lot of kudos in the chat. Everybody seems to like the session. Well done. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Oh, one last poll.
Yep.
Oh.
Some pretty good percents there.
I like a
And
good
we have
yes.
100 people still in here. All right, guys. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Phil,
Thank you.
and everybody else.